This week on the Powell Not Found podcast, we're talking about the Yankees sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers in grand fashion when it comes to the offense. My goodness. We're also talking a little bit briefly about the movie The Black Bag, starring Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett. And we're also going to finish out the show talking about Nintendo's big digital change, which is worth talking about this week. Let's get into it. This is the Powell Not Found podcast. Coming up, here we go.
I'm gonna tell you a story about a girl who loves gin. A national pandemic seized her birthday celebration. Although she knew it was coming, we tried not to tell her. She brewed some Irish breakfast tea. She knew her birthday was getting coronaed.
I gotta believe I might be throwing a ball here. Just
you might want to put a wrinkle in one of them. The fastball's not getting by him.
That one's driven deep to left field. There it goes. See ya. Back to back to back. 3-0 Yankees.
Really the moment of the weekend here. The back-to-back.
How do you tell this is the first inning? 3 pitches, 3 home runs.
In game 2
the Yankees on fire
of this new 2025 season. The Yankees have come out and exploded when it comes to offense. Not only was there the historic leadoff home run in game 1 from Austin Wells, a catcher, no less, leading off the game with a home run, a questionable move by Aaron Boone. It's a very, very different lineup. But then game 2, immediately from the jump, after a successful game 1 win, back-to-back shots. That's a home run from Paul Goldschmidt, a newcomer, also a newbie in the leadoff spot. So back-to-back games, your leadoff man homers and sets the tone right away. Then Cody Bellinger with his first of the season, second pitch of the game, and who else but Aaron Judge really to make this on the third pitch to really finish out this shot. Quite a show in the beginning. 3 pitches, the first time that's ever been done. Back-to-back shots to lead off a game on 3 consecutive pitches, and happening off of Nestor Cortez, which I believe the post-game and the press conference did kind of cover this. Couldn't have happened to a worse person, right? That was immediately my feel. Like, Nestor, how much he meant to this team for how many years, and for him to just be welcomed back to the Bronx. Obviously, they gave him a little bit of a cheer, but not the way that you want to start against your old team, and not the way you want to start with your new team, right? That doesn't put a lot of faith in the Brewers side of things. Not only that, a 4th home run by Austin Wells in that first inning set the tone for the rest of the game. A 20-run game in game 2 for Nestor Cortez, for the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Yankees on the game 2. So, man, I mean, what a great thing to see if you're a Yankees fan, but also I feel like most Yankee fans, if you were to survey them, man, you wish it could have happened to a different player, not Nestor Cortez, because that was the only bittersweet moment of this explosive offense that we've been seeing. The Yankees end up sweeping the Brewers. Game 1, 4-2. The second game, 20-9, and then today's game, 12-3. As the offense just comes ready to bat, ready to hit. Man, it makes you really forget about what happened this offseason, doesn't it? I mean, I even tweeted myself during game 2. I was like, who needs Soto? When you're having this much offense, when you're having this much production at the plate, all of a sudden it doesn't matter. And the first thing that I kind of noticed when I was watching some of these games, it just seems like there's more bat on ball, right? Last year it used to drive me up a wall, but it felt like you were just waiting for the carousel to kind of return back to the beginning of the order. You're waiting for that Soto-Judge combination to create any kind of offense. But this is up and down the lineup that production was seen. I mean, alone, you're talking about, I'm not sure if these numbers are updated just yet, but I mean, Judge having 6 hits in his first 10 at-bats, 4 home runs. Austin Wells having 2 home runs right off the bat. Jazz Chisholm now having 3 home runs after a 2-home-run game. I mean, we're seeing production from all parts of the lineup. Oswald Peraza having a pinch hit home run. This is the kind of production you want to see all year long. And it's nice to have it in the beginning of the season. I would warn against all Yankee fans that there's going to be struggles. There's going to be moments where the Yankees don't hit. And I just want to remind everybody, remember this feeling when they put up 15 home runs in 3 games, when they put up over 30 runs, 32, 36 runs in 3 games. Just remember that when they get shut out one day in June, just remember they're capable of doing this in a game. Last year, I don't think this would have been possible. I don't think that the lineups had the depth. I don't think that your rookies and your Anthony Volpes and your, even though he's in a sophomore season, but your Austin Wells, I don't think they hadn't taken the step. They really look like they've taken the step this year. Aaron Judge, coming off a really slow October. Nothing makes you forget faster than having a extremely, really, really hot April and leading your team off 3-0 with 4 home runs in the first 3 games. Also the first Yankee to ever do that in franchise history. So quite impressive. If we're putting the offense aside, right, even the pitching, impressive, right? The pitching did kind of what it needed to do. Rodon looked solid in the first game. Didn't look the best, he doesn't, he goes like 4.1, 4.2. I got to remember what he kind of went in that first game here. Yeah, Rodon 5.1. 5.1, goes 5 innings, 5 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 7 Ks. He does what you want him to do. Provides a little bit of depth in that rotation, and then Hill, Leiter to Luke Weaver. Leiter Jr. and Luke Weaver having a scoreless frame, 2 Ks apiece there, and Devin Williams makes his debut, the new closer from the Milwaukee Brewers, acquired in the trade for Nestor Cortez. And both parties, Nestor Cortez and Devin Williams, having shaky starts to their new teams here. Devin Williams out of the jump did not look solid. He kind of got it together, but to be fair, it is the first time, and maybe you can kind of dismiss that with first time jitters. I don't think it's going to be any indication of how he's going to perform throughout the year. Even though Devin Williams' season last year didn't end well with the Mets tagging him in the wild card game, I believe, and here he didn't look that great. But again, it's his first time debuting. I heard Michael Kay say something really funny on the broadcaster. They said that Devin Williams didn't get booed in like 5 years in Milwaukee, and it took 17 pitches for the Yankee fans to boo him. like, listen, you're just gonna have to get used to that kind of environment here at the stadium. So I think before anybody starts playing armchair analyst with Devin Williams, I think you just got to see what he's got under his belt. He goes in innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run allowed, but closes out the game 4-2. It's a dicey game. Listen, he's an all-star closer. Hopefully he'll continue to be that form. If not, listen, there is an option right in front of him in Luke Weaver that they can trade places if this thing does not continue to work out. But I think we need more innings under the belt to see what he's actually capable of. And first time Yankee debut, making that impression has got to be got to have a lot of jitters. Same thing with Nestor Cortez. That is the worst way you want to start, but it cannot be easy facing your former team and hoping that you do well. It's got to affect your pitching performance at some point. Nestor, you can't blame him for having the jitters. I mean, that's got to be an odd thing. They said second career start that's not in pinstripes, and facing a lineup that knows you in and out. It's got to be difficult. Wish he's going to have a better season. Hopefully he's going to have a better season. Couldn't have asked for that to happen to a worse person. I wish it was some other person on the Milwaukee Brewers staff. The next game, Game 2, just an absolute rout of the Brewers. 9 home runs, sets a franchise record there. In a game. Goldschmidt home run, Bellinger home run, Judge had 3 of his own, almost had a 4th, missed just by sheer inches, getting that 4th home run, which would have been amazing and historic. Austin Wells had a home run, just continuing his tear. Volpe having a home run. Chisholm, Peraza getting in on the fun. I mean, absolute slugfest. Finally, we're seeing the Bronx Bombers be the Bronx Bombers. Something that you could not have said last year. Judge and Soto, the vast majority of the power in the lineup last year, hit for a combined, 98 home runs or something like that? It was something ridiculous. You wouldn't have seen a game like this. It just goes to show you just how well-rounded this team is. Everyone's putting wood on the ball. Dominguez is even putting wood on the ball. He's gotten 2 walks himself. People are getting on base, and when people get on base, things start to happen. Now, defensively in this game, the Yankees have 5 errors. An error, Volpe yanks a throw. Fried yanks a throw. Reyes just has a hard time at third base, and Chisholm has a one in the field. Just an ugly game all in all for the Yankees overall. When you give up, when you hit for 20 runs, it doesn't really matter. None of these things are going to be analyzed that much. But Milwaukee still scored 9 runs, right? Of Fried's in and out outing. 4.2, 7 hits, 2 earned runs. 2 earned runs behind the 5 errors of the Yankees. When you give up 4 earned runs in total, it says 5 earned runs and 9 runs total. So 4 unearned runs. Something's crazy is happening with the defense behind you. So it reminded me a little bit of the 5th inning in the World Series where the Dodgers kept on saying, just put the ball in play, put the ball in play. And you saw a little bit of it here. Volpe with that throw, that ugly throw, pulls him off the bag. Fried just not taking his time, right? They got to get better about that. This is going to bite them at some point. In this game, it was kind of a wash, but it's going to bite them defensively. We've seen so many good upticks in this series already. Second base just looks like a totally different position. No disrespect to Gleyber Torres, but he just is not. He just wouldn't get around. Like his range wasn't as big, right? Center field, we're seeing Bellinger kind of go after some balls in center field the way that Judge would kind of glide over there, but Bellinger's getting them, really just upping that defense all around. Pablo Reyes, first game, so maybe this is just some of those balls were really, really hard hit. Some of those moves were questionable, but again, it's his first game. Like, what are you going to do? So just a great slugfest for the Yankees. If you're a Yankee fan, you really enjoyed watching this game. I mean, 4 in the first frame, 3 in the second, 6 in the third, 3 in the fourth, none in the fifth, 2 in the sixth, 2 in the seventh, and 0 in the eighth. I mean, this is a game that you have an MLB The Show. This is a video game-like result that they just witnessed. If you bought a ticket to the second game, this was the greatest ticket you could have gotten. 29 total runs in the game. It looks more like a football score. What a performance. And then the Yankees, after a 3 home run performance by Judge, what does Judge do in the second game here? But just do what he does best and continue to rake. And this is going 1 for 1 today with 3 walks. Finally, Milwaukee decides, hey, we're not going to pitch to him anymore. Something that they probably should have understood years ago, right? After the 3 home runs, why do you even try to pitch to him again, right? Hits another towering blast that in the first inning here, putting the Yankees up 2 for a 2-1 lead, and basically never surrendering that lead until the end of the game. Quite impressive. I think it's one taking away last year. Judge was off to a very slow start. Historically, he's not been like a burning bat in the beginning of April. But of all years to get off to a good start, and they were even saying in spring he wasn't having a good spring, but this is the time to do it. Cole's out. There are injuries galore on this team. You want the pitching to be able to relax. Fried gave you a questionable outing. His command wasn't there. Stroman gives you 4-2 on this game, 4 2/3, 3 earned runs. And then it goes Stroman, Hill, Leiter, Cruz to Yarbrough. And you want him to get off to a good start because that's going to be, he's the anchor of your team. Hitting's contagious. And after this rout of hitting that the Yankees kind of took to the Brewers, of course, there's going to be controversy because if you were watching the game, you might have noticed that the Yankees were using new Torpedo bats, as they're called. They're newly shaped bats that have a little bit more meat in the barrel and then tend to taper towards the top of the bat. This caused a lot of controversy this weekend, especially after, nobody was saying anything after the first game, 4-2. That's a normal baseball game. But when you score 20 runs, you're going to get talk, right? It's either you've got something on the pitcher, or if you're the Yankees, which is unfortunate, is that you're cheating. And I think that's a specifically Yankee thing. If this was any other team, the media would be praising the genius that they exhibited in the offseason to deploy something like this. But immediately, if it's the Yankees, you're cheating, which is completely unfair to the team. Don't know why they get saddled with that all the time. If this was the Marlins, again, it would be a totally different story. But again, the Yankees get basically blasted by the media saying that they're cheating, even though they're using completely legal wooden bats. According to MLB, this is an article, Brian Hoke, Major League Baseball confirmed Sunday that the bats do not violate Major League rules or bat supplier regulations. Rule 3.02 states that bats cannot be more than 2.61 inches in diameter and 42 inches in length. Quote, the concept makes so much sense. I'm now bought in, Volpe said. The bigger you can have the barrel where you hit the ball, it makes so much sense. It makes sense to me. Now, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, I'm just going to push to the shape of the bat. And you can see, if you're looking really closely at this barrel, if you're watching on a broadcast, you're not going to be able to really tell the difference. But so many things have been happening with bats in general over the last 20 years. Especially with handles and no handle, no nub or whatever, that occasionally when you do see a difference in a bat, you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. But unless you're looking for it, you don't see it until you see it, and then you can't really unsee it. Volpe, Chisholm are using these bigger bats, and you'd think, just judging by the reaction, that the Yankees were using bats that were akin to the red wiffle ball bats that you see in Dick's Sporting Goods. This is a slightly meatier barrel that tapers off to the top. And honestly, if it doesn't if it doesn't affect anything in terms of rules, I don't see why this should be even talked about, right? Or, hey, listen, your team got to it late, right? That's the thing that I think everyone's complaining about. But obviously caused a little bit of stir considering the Yankees hit 20 runs, and all of a sudden it becomes the big story, especially for a Trevor McGill from the Brewers was quoted saying, quote, "I feel like it's something used in slow pitch softball. It's genius. Put the mass all in one spot. It might be Bush League, it might not be, but it's the Yankees, so they let it slide." When approached for a comment after Sunday's game, McGill claimed he was misquoted, but he did not want to clarify what might have been incorrectly reported, and that is from an Athletic article from Chris Kirschner. Listen, when you give up 20 runs, again, it kind of goes back to the whole when offense was king in the 90s. They still got to hit the ball, right? Your mislocation has nothing to do with whether you're bringing up a bat that looks like a toothpick or a bat that looks like Barry Bonds bat from the late early 2000s. You still got to hit the ball, right? Nestor was missing spots all over the place, and they were capitalizing. He was chucking them right down the pipe, and they capitalized. This interesting story though with the bats is something that's kind of interesting. They, according to some of these reports out here, it was designed by, who was it? I just had it. They were designed by like a physicist who basically was trying to tailor these bats towards the hitter's swing path. And that's genius, right? That's analytics taking it a step forward again, right? Is that you're getting more people, more minds in the room, and they're maximizing, hey, listen, instead of having the batter adjust, why don't we just adjust to the batter's nuances? Really cool. I think it's a really cool development. I'm glad that the Yankees are taking advantage of it. And here's a little bit of Michael Kay during the broadcast on Game 2 talking about these new bats with Paul O'Neill. Let's take a listen.
And that's that bat in use. And you can see it hit the thicker part of the bat. Now, the Yankees are designing the bats based on the profiles of their hitters to maximize the production at the plate. Now, everything is meticulously tailored to the individual hitters. Now, for the players who are interested, they researched and designed bats with the players in the loop throughout the process. It's much more involved than just giving out one standard bat to all of the players. And bat fitting is something that bat manufacturers have offered for years. It's also common in other sports such as golf and tennis. They're just trying to catch up and do what they can to tailor designs in-house. It's not forced on the...
Interesting, again, just fitting it towards the player's nuances as opposed to making the player adjust for some of the things that are coming at them. Makes perfect sense. And if it doesn't violate the rules, then, hey, more power to them. Obviously, the offense looks a little bit different. I mean, it looks very, very powerful. Maybe these are the bats, right? Aaron Judge is not using one of these bats. They asked him after the game, are you using one of these bats? He's like, are you kidding? Right? There's no reason for them to change if you're hitting as hot as Aaron Judge is. But definitely an interesting development. We'll see what the numbers look like, right? If they can prove that this is a statistical change just because of the equipment, or if it's because maybe Volpe, Austin Wells, Jazz Chisholm, maybe they're just becoming better players over the years that they've been in the league now. So it'll be interesting. It was very, very interesting to see how the firestorm happened and how it just surrounded the Yankees. Because it's like, again, if it's any other team, it's genius for them. If this was the Tampa Bay Rays, people would be talking about how genius they were, what they're employing. Instead, when it's the Yankees, it's just you cheated. And that's just so unfortunate for the team. But the Yankees come away with a 3-game sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers. And when we get back, we'll talk a little bit briefly about the new movie Black Bag, which came out a couple weeks ago. And we'll talk about Nintendo's prosumer change here with digital game cards, which is really, really interesting and also worth talking about as they get ready to launch the Nintendo Switch 2. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, reminder to subscribe to the show at youtube.com @PowellNotFound and review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you get your podcasts. It helps grow the show. All right, back to the show. Hello and welcome back to the show. Again, I'm your host, Mark Powell, with the Powell Not Found podcast, episode 59 for the week of Sunday, March 30th. Got the privilege to watch another movie this week, even though so much stuff happened with opening day, especially with the Yankees and them playing incredibly well. We didn't even really need to talk about a movie, and that's why we're briefly going to touch on this, but we're not going to talk about it extensively. And that's the movie Black Bag, which is quite it's hard. Whenever something comes out, you want the content to be good, and for weeks now, because during the off season you need to have something to do, you need to have something to talk about, you end up seeing the trailer for certain movies over and over and over again. And one of these movies definitely was Black Bag. It had kind of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith vibe, if anybody remembers that film from 2005 with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. It was two spies, husband and wife, targeted against or turned against each other in a spy thriller that starred Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender, directed by Steven Soderbergh. And it looked great according to the trailers. The trailer really gave you this idea that all these things were going to be happening, that you were going to be on the edge of your seat, that you were going to really be enthralled and taken into this picture. And again, I say this all the time, wanting every single thing that I review and everything that I watch, that I want to be engaged. I want to be brought into the film. This film does not do that. This film is highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes. It seems like it's highly rated by critics. I don't get it. I want 90 minutes of my life back. I want I didn't quite understand or get the film. The film is so exposition heavy. You're watching a lot of famous actors like Pierce Brosnan, the guy from Bridgerton, Kate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender, and they're in endless conversation. It feels like a LaBute play. It feels just like constantly stuck in this talky mess that never really develops anywhere or goes anywhere. And if you go in there with the expectation of seeing a film that's going to be a globe-trotting kind of like Mission Impossible kind of thing, you are left really, really disappointed. This film talks its way and just is boring. I mean, it's not interesting or enthralling whatsoever. And that's why I was kind of hesitant to even talk about it, because I'm not going to have really that many nice things to say about it. There are multiple times, it's an hour and a half, and that's probably the most positive thing about the movie, is that it's short, right? It doesn't do what it's doing to you very long before it finally wraps up and lets you go on with your regular daily life. It's not a very thrilling film. If you're into very analytical, very heady kind of dramas, this probably might work for you, but it's convoluted. It's kind of a mess. It's like watching a game of Clue that doesn't really have any kind of payoff because none of the characters are likable. It suffers a lot of the same fate that Alto Knights did. And then having that be back to back makes me really disappointed in the lineup that the theater has right now. Snow White is bombing as an animated feature. Alto Knights was terrible. It just makes you really appreciate some of those big blockbusters like Minecraft coming next week, which is probably going to be huge because some of these movies are really, really slow. I don't quite understand how a movie like this gets positive reviews and something like September 5 from last year, which is truly a drama and truly captivating, how that flies under the radar and something like this, just because it has high build actors and actresses, gets positive reviews, even though the story just feels like it was completely phoned in and advertised in a completely different way. It reminds me last year or a couple years ago, it must have been 3 years ago, right? There was the last James Bond film, No Time to Die, was advertised with a, obviously like a Bond film, but they were advertising really heavily Ana de Armas, one of the minor characters in the film, but they were kind of advertising her as like a major part. And somebody sued the movie for basically false advertising, saying you can't just showcase someone in the movie like that and then find out they're only in it for 10 minutes. And it was this interesting case that would kind of, you'd hear about in the zeitgeist, kind of come in, come out. This is what I feel is another example of whatever the plaintiff there was trying to prove. He ended up losing that case, but whatever they were trying to prove, it just wasn't advertised correctly. It was misleading in the way that it tricked you into thinking that you were going to be watching a thriller in what ended up being a boring dinner party. I kid you not, a 3-minute scene 3 to 4 minutes where people are just taking polygraph tests. There's a fishing scene where there's just endless dialogue. There are countless examples throughout this film that action does not happen. You don't go to any other place. You're stuck in a conference room and an office setting. There's a couple exterior scenes. But, listen, as the audience member who's trying to escape reality by going to a movie like this, no one really wants to be in a movie where they really have to constantly work hard and think about the plot. And if they lose it for a second, they're gone and they're lost. I used to think about this with Bond films a lot when I'd watch them as a kid. I always felt like I had to concentrate to keep up with the plot because they were talking in such high level terms. Here, they're talking in such convoluted spy agent mess kind of talk that if you do tune out for 2 seconds, well, you're done. You might as well pack it in for the rest of the hour and a half because you're not going to get the thread back. By the time Pierce Brosnan shows up, it's so convoluted. You're like, I'm not invested anymore. So my biggest recommendation, if you wanted to see Black Bag and you were on the fence, my biggest recommendation is don't. There's so many other ways you can spend 90 minutes of your time, right? You can watch the Yankees be really successful on MLB.TV or wherever you are. If you're in New York, you can do the dishes. You can do some chores around the house. Make sure that your house is looking tidy and feeling good. You have a clean environment, you'll feel better. Do your taxes. Do anything else than watch this film because this film aggressively wastes your time. And there are other better choices to watch, like endless choices to watch on streaming. By the end of the movie, I was so confused and so PO'd by what the movie had done that I thought to myself, is that when this movie eventually comes to Netflix or streaming services, there should be an option to basically never have a movie shown to you or suggested to you again. You can always add something to your list on Netflix. There should be a ban from my list. And this movie takes that honor, because that was, I want, again, 90 minutes of my time back. Also, I went to go see it at an AMC, which was definitely not my choice of theater when seeing a movie, right? I'm more of an Alamo person, kind of. If I was going to go see a movie in theaters, that's usually the place where I'll go. Again, movie advertised at $225. That movie did not show until $245, which is understandable. 20 minutes of previews, that's pretty much standard across the board. Then AMC shows you a commercial about how beautiful their screens are, which is really hard to kind of defend, especially considering that there are like TVs that look better. Those LG, higher models where their blacks look amazing, and the colors and the LEDs or the OLED stuff is amazing. So another 2 or 3 minutes on a beautiful commercial about their screen. Then the Nicole Kidman commercial comes in and thanks me for coming to the theater. Like, at what point, how many commercials and ads do we have to sit through to watch this horrible movie? It's just getting a little bit insane. I know I mention this all the time with movies, but again, there should be if it starts at $225, it should start somewhere within a 10-minute window. Don't give me 5 minutes of commercials after 20 minutes of previews. I mean, that's just excessive. Like, people might have plans afterwards. So anyways, tough day at the movie theater. That's Black Bag, starring Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. The acting in it is subpar. I mean, Michael Fassbender there's more personality in Agent 47 and Hitman than there is in this particular movie. Don't go see it. It's not a good movie. It's a very, very, it ends with like an exposition dump of, it feels like you're watching Clue. It's not very interesting. If someone told me that this movie was written by AI, I'd totally buy it. Even though it's written by David Koepp, it just feels like it's empty. It never gets you invested in the film. It's not a good movie. I would not go see it. My recommendation, go see it if you want and tell me how you feel, but I don't think it's a very, very good or engaging movie, Black Bag. So with that, let's talk about something that's a little bit more upbeat and fun, and that's this prosumer move by Nintendo. So Nintendo is going to have a big week this week. On Wednesday, I want to go live here for the Nintendo Switch 2 deep dive that they've been really pimping and advertising since they made mention of the Nintendo Switch 2 in their January Direct, whenever it was. And they said, hey, we'll be back in 3 months with more information about Nintendo Switch 2, and we are about a couple days away here from that. So on Wednesday, they're going to go live and potentially go live with pre-orders and all that kind of stuff for this next-gen system of theirs, which looks to be just a bigger and better and sleeker Nintendo Switch system. I mean, when something sells millions and millions of copies, why reinvent the wheel? The Yankees, Nintendo decided to have a Nintendo Direct, though, that talked about some other things that are coming to Switch, including a little update on Metro Prime 4, which had been announced for years before and hadn't been seen. They showed gameplay from that, which was exciting. But one of the bigger things that I think didn't get a lot of note was that they launched virtual game cards for the system, in which you could use your digital purchases on Switch and lend them out as if you were lending out a physical game card to another system that you may own, or it appears another system that you're friends with for 2 weeks maximum, and then that card comes back to you, which solves a great problem. When I was a kid, if you lent a video game to one of your friends, there was like a 95% chance you weren't seeing that video game again. It wasn't until your parents went and knocked on their doors and said, you have my copy of Super Mario Brothers. with this particular thing, I know that there was a huge problem with families that had to buy multiple copies of games, or games that were just kind of stuck digitally. This freedom in order to kind of push your digital copy and lend it to someone within your account and to load it on their thing is a huge pro-consumer move for the company to do. We've already seen on platforms like Steam where if you buy something digitally, you have like under 2 hours. You can play up to 2 hours, and if you own it for 48, like some time period, 48 hours or whatever, you can within 3 or 4 days you can return it, which is such a good move for them. For people who buy something in error or whatever, for so long, there's been no way to really get any kind of credit or any kind of flexibility with your digital ownership. And I say that very, very lightly because whenever you're buying something digitally, you do not own it. It is a licensed software to you. So when you're buying those DVDs on whatever platform that you're buying, that digital copy is a license for you to use it. So for them to give any kind of flexibility in this case is such a good move, and it gives people a way to flexibly move about their systems, move their software amongst their systems, and not buy multiple copies of games when you can lend it out if you're just talking from your kid to kid or your brother to brother or whatever, however your whole dynamic works. It is a very, very pro-consumer move, and I think it's going to work on Nintendo Switch 1 and also on Nintendo Switch 2, which is a good thing. And it's really the first kind of push into, hey, here's one more option you can do. For so long, it's just been like you've been locked into your system, and now that you can move these games around, it's a really nice feature that I think they've pushed towards the end of their cycle, and it's going to make buying games that much easier, and you're going to save money in the end, which is a nice move for a company that does not have to do that. It's something that's not parodied across the board by Xbox or by Sony systems. So that's a good move. I wonder if after the success of this platform generation and the next one, if we're going to see other people kind of mimic this move going into the next generation. So we'll see. With that, we're going to wrap it back up. It's been about 40 minutes. It is late at night here, and I want to go to sleep. So we're going to wrap up the show. We will be back on Wednesday to talk a little bit about, that will be episode 60 for the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal coming up this week. And we should talk about basically everything that they're going to reveal. This is features, specs, and whatever they're going to show with it. So I'm excited for that as the Nintendo nerd that I am. And we'll be back, of course, in episode 60 talking a little bit about the Yankees on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. I'm glad baseball is back. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.